With PSG still holding out for in excess of £50 million for Manuel Ugarte, Martin Zubimendi's name has come up in reports linking him to United. However, for me it just doesn't seem logical. If Manchester United's interest in Zubimendi is dependent on Ugarte being the first choice, then why is Zubimendi the alternative? I think I have a much better alternative that is a mixture between both Ugarte and Zubimendi, and I'll come on to him in a few minutes. But in regards to Zubimendi and Ugarte, I just think they're completely different types of deeper line midfielders. But I have to say, I much prefer Ugarte, even if he was say £10 million more expensive. The max I'm paying for him is about £45 million up front, maybe with add-ons up to £60 million, but above £55 million you might as well just go out and get João Neves, who would probably only be about £15 to £20 million more expensive. If you want to see my comparison of Neves and Ugarte, that video will be linked in the description. But in regards to Zubimendi and Ugarte, I just feel like Ugarte is a far better defensive player, and I would argue that Zubimendi isn't actually that much better in possession. For me, Zubimendi is massively overrated. I don't think he's anywhere near the level of an effective replacement for either Busquets at Barcelona or Rodri with the national team. In possession, he's very good at keeping the play circulating efficiently, which certainly has its importance, particularly in the defensive third in the build-up phase, meaning that it's fair to categorise Zubimendi as a midfielder who excels in the first phase of possession. However, after his short passing and press resistance, I don't think he really excels at much that Ugarte doesn't. If we compare both players' passing section of their FB ref report over the past 365 days, when compared against every other midfielder in Europe's top 5 leagues, we see that Zubimendi ranks fairly high, around the 60th to 80th percentile range for most of his statistics, but Ugarte is pushing the mid to high 90th percentiles. Certainly for his medium and long passing, whilst both players complete a similar amount of passes into the final third, and I would say the eye test backs this up. But before I show you his metrics, if you want to pick up any new season or retro jerseys, go over to Jersey FIFA. You can use code Atlantis at checkout for a discount. A link will be in my Instagram bio, which I will leave linked in the description and comment section below. As I've thought for some time now that while Zubimendi is very tidy and efficient as a player in that deeper position, I just don't think he's as effective as he could be. Ugarte definitely has the ability to receive the ball in tight congested spaces and also be able to move the ball on efficiently, but Zubimendi is levels below Ugarte from a defensive point of view. Ugarte is up there with the best defensive midfielders in the world, and you can see the difference between the two players statistically, with Ugarte ranking in the top 1% for his dribblers tackled and dribblers challenged metrics, alongside his combined tackles and interceptions completed. Ugarte is arguably the most aggressive front foot midfielder in world football, which does on occasion lead him to sometimes overcommitting and getting dribbled past, or committing an error of some sort. However, I just think he's perfect for an aggressive, high pressing system like Ten Hag's. Zubimendi specialises in one thing, and that's retaining possession and working the ball out of the defensive third, but in the middle third I just think he lacks the ability to see and thread an incisive pass between the lines, getting the ball in behind the opposition's midfield. Now Ugarte doesn't exactly excel at this, but he's so good defensively that he just blows Zubimendi out of the water, and I just don't think that Martin Zubimendi is worth anything over £30 million. But who would be a better alternative to Ugarte for around £45 to £50 million, and who are some cheaper alternatives that United could consider? Now for around £50 million, I think Crystal Palace's Adam Wharton is not only the best alternative to Ugarte, but I am actually considering the argument that he could actually be a better option than the Uruguayan. See, a lot of people like to throw around the phrase English buyers, claiming that English players in general are overrated. However, I actually disagree, and Adam Wharton v Zubimendi is a clear reason why. Just from the eye test, I think Adam Wharton looks like much the better player. He has that Busquets and Rodri-like fluidity in his body movement and technique that I just don't think Zubimendi has to the same level, and in general I think Wharton's disguise on his passes and his actual desire to attempt those line-breaking progressive passes to move the ball forward is far superior to Zubimendi's. Wharton's passing, ball carrying and take-on metrics aren't crazy impressive, but they are still very good for a 20-year-old who only joined a Premier League club from the Championship midway through last season, and performed well enough to get a call up to the Euros this summer. But a distinguishing factor between Wharton and Zubimendi for me is that Wharton is much more athletic, tenacious and overall defensively superior as a midfielder, and we can see this when we compare both players' FB ref reports over the past 365 days. You can see here that Zubimendi isn't a high volume tackler, but he does complete a high amount of the tackles on dribblers that he does attempt, ranking in the 78th percentile. However, Wharton is a much higher volume, front foot kind of midfielder, as even though he does rank slightly lower compared to Zubimendi for the percentage of dribblers he has tackled, he ranks in the mid 90th percentiles for the volume of dribblers he challenged and tackled, whilst also sitting in the mid 80s for the amount of interceptions he completed. Both players would play in a single pivot behind Mainu and Bruno Fernandes, or alongside Mainu in a double pivot, and I think from a defensive and pressing point of view, Wharton offers a lot more security than Zubimendi, who I don't think has the necessary athleticism or ground coverage to be left on his own in the midfield, which would necessitate either Mainu sitting alongside him behind the ball in the rest defence, or Dalot inverting from the right. However, I think Wharton can definitely play this role, and even in possession where Zubimendi excels, I still prefer Wharton. I think the Englishman has a better level of disguise and technique when receiving the ball compared to Zubimendi, and I just feel his passing is a lot more progressive. As I've said, Zubimendi is excellent at efficiently circulating possession, but I think Wharton does a lot more with it, constantly looking for forward passes to split the midfield line, or longer passes to switch the play that I feel Zubimendi just doesn't do enough, and this is the main reason as to why I prefer Wharton, particularly when you factor in that both players would cost in excess of £50 million. If United wanted a cheaper alternative to Ugarte and Zubimendi, however, who would be my standout options? So I think the two standout alternative options are Mandela Keita and Maxime Kakare, with Keita costing likely around £20 million and Kakare anywhere between 20 to a maximum of I would say £30 million. Now on first glance, neither of these two players have the physicality in terms of the upper body strength that Ugarte does possess, but both do have a similar ability to Adam Wharton, in the sense that they're able to receive the ball in tight spaces and thread incisive passes between the lines. Now Keita is probably more of a single pivot midfielder than Kakare, though the Frenchman has such a complete skill set in his mid-20s that I could see him eventually fulfilling this role, with a style very similar to Marco Verratti. I think both Kakare and Keita have the pressing, defensive and athletic requirements to be a significant improvement on Eriksen, Amrabat and Casemiro from a defensive point of view, and in possession both players are significantly more press resistant, better ball carriers and far more efficient when it comes to progressing the ball into central positions, between the lines and into chance creating positions in general. But if we are talking about an alternative to Ugarte and Zubimendi, for around the same price I'd take Adam Wharton every single day over Zubimendi, and probably Wharton over Ugarte as well most days of the week. But now we can move on to the tactical explanation of what United need from a player in that deep single pivot. So the way I think about it is in possession, in that deep single pivot position in the midfield, you need the type of player who you'd want in a five-a-side match, immaculate control, vision and awareness, in order to enable them to be the link between the back three and the midfield line. And while Zubimendi could definitely do this, I think not only is Wharton a better progressive passer, but out of possession his athleticism, tenacity and tackling ability makes him well suited to Ten Hag's aggressive pressing style, where he would be expected to push up the pitch either behind Bruno Fernandes and Mainu in a 3-2-4-1 pressing shape, with one of the defenders pushing up alongside him to create that vertically compact pressing shape, or alongside Mainu in the double pivot in United's initial 4-2-4 pressing shape. Zubimendi on the other hand I think needs a lot more support in defensive situations, as his lack of athleticism and overall ability to defend 1v1 situations in space could be something that gets exploited, just as Casemiro was last season, particularly with Ten Hag using such an aggressive press, which does leave the midfield double pivot with a lot of space to cover. And so considering Zubimendi has a release clause in the region of £50 million, even if he was to cost a bit extra, I think Wharton is a much better deal, and you could argue that long term he'd be a better partner for Mainu than Ugarte as well. As Ugarte's ball winning ability is frankly elite, Wharton's game, particularly what he offers in possession, is a lot more well rounded, and if Ten Hag is looking for a single pivot player to link the play in the build up and also progress the ball in the middle third, I can't help but see Wharton as already the better option than Ugarte. And whilst defensively he certainly isn't as good as the Uruguayan, there aren't too many players who are, but already I think Adam Wharton is significantly better defensively than Martin Zubimendi. And so for me this summer, Adam Wharton would be my main target for that position alongside Mainu, Ugarte the backup choice, with Mandela Keita and Maxime Kakare being the cheaper options as well. Now I have also got videos out analysing Fofana and Richard Rios and whether they would be good signings for United, so you can check out those videos. I'll leave them linked in the description, in the comment section and in the eye above as well.